So just to welcome to today's session, we have some really wonderful voices that are going to co-share this space with us and think together. And so we'd like to formally welcome Dr. Terry Kanayo, who is the co-founder of Children in Freedom School. She will be really our reflective keynote thinking partner. So rather than presenting, she's going to listen to all that comes through in this session and through the lens of her experience, mirror back for us, reflect back for us what we ourselves feel, think, and are sharing about these three thematic areas. And then we have three incredibly special people who are parents from the East African community, who are bringing the parent voice, because if we have a session and if we have a series of sessions about parental empowerment and engagement, it is essential that, like in our education system, learners are given a voice. So in this session, we are sure that parents themselves are overtly given a voice. Obviously, many of us are parents as well, so we bring that hat ourselves. But Mr. Ndeti Jackson, Mrs. Samoine Jeremiah, and Mrs. Elifaraja Galitha, welcome to you and thank you for joining our session today. Quick little bit of housekeeping. The way that our Africa Voices dialogue sessions run is in an extremely inclusive way. So we really do try to create the opportunity for every voice to be heard. That's very hard when we're in a large room with 40 or 50 people in it. And so we cycle in these sessions between a coherent space, a space where we are all in together, this sort of plenary space, in which we invite specific people to share their thoughts, but also in which we invite you all to share your thoughts. And so please be aware that we're looking for engagement. We're looking for your voice to be present. If you have burning questions or comments or thoughts, please feel free. Put your hand up right in the chat group. Your voice matters. Your voice counts. And getting this level of engagement is what these sessions are about. And then we go into breakaway rooms. We are going to have one breakaway room today, which is quite long for a kind of in-depth discussion on these three topics. And in those breakaway rooms, in which you'll find yourself in a room with between 5 and 6 people, the goal is to ensure that every voice is heard, that we pay attention to the quality of thinking and of space and of voice that each of us bring, and that each of us creates and generates a space for our own collective best thinking. So just before we kick off into the session itself, we've had some really fantastic engagements with the really team with regards to the CIES conference, which they attended recently. So in the beginning of March, if I'm not mistaken, end Feb, beginning of March, February the 14th to the 22nd. CIS was held in the States. It's an enormous education conference. And the Really team had an incredible representation and brought the African voice very, very firmly into that space. And so we'd like to invite either Gardens, if he is here, or alternatively Maggie, to please just give us a quick share on that experience. Carry on, Andrew.
I think I've seen Gardens.
Great.
I'm here, Robin.
Great, Gardens. So let me spotlight you. And then please do just share a little bit about this experience.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, this year's CIS was really a fantastic one. And it was an amazing opportunity where the team from the region where really had an opportunity to engage and present and share the learning, evidences and practices that we have been able to gather from the African space or from the from the areas where we come from. Just to give you a brief of what was it. So the CIS, as most of you might know, it's an annual conference that is happening and organized by the Comparative and International Education Society. And this year it happened from 14th to 22nd of February. And a total of 3,600 participants were given an opportunity to participate. 700 were online, and then 2,900 were on site in Washington. A total of 1,000 sessions were held. And with that, you can imagine, it was really an opportunity to exchange from the academia and to the practitioners, and also to hear from the voices from those who are working on the ground. And with Rally, for sure, we were able to host 23 panels, 36 papers, and a total of 45 Rally members were able to present and showcase what we do and what we have been able to gather from where our work is happening. And from the 23 panels and 46 participants, our key themes in terms of papers presented were around research reports from evidences generated across the East Africa region, and innovations in teaching and learning on what worked during COVID pandemic, but also what has continued to work after COVID, and the resilience that we have been able to build after that. We shared best practices and case studies from Africa, developed by Africans, compiled by Africans, and then presented in collaboration with other scholars and other practitioners from across the world. And this CIS has shown us the power of collaboration among African researchers, practitioners, and across the global space, which was highly visible. If you can see, like among the 23 panels, you might see some collaborations from East Africa, from India, from all over the world. And I could see researchers from this part of the world, when given a space or when they claim their space, they can really do wonders. And that was actually the order of the day. And we're able also to showcase what has worked in terms of evidences on policy influencing and advocacy, because some of us are working in that space. And it was really fantastic to see how people have been able to build relationship with the government and then with the other actors on the ground, which we call the constituencies that we work with. And it was just amazing to see how also other people are looking forward to understand and look for more evidences, for more partnership, for more relationship building with these actors from the Global South. And we were able to have the rally booth and also the rally reception, which was quite amazing. And so many people were there to exchange, to share, and see where we are taking this space further for the researchers and NGO or civil society leaders from this point. So that was a bit on a glance. You can actually visit our website soon. We'll be sharing some posts or blogs or our papers that were able to be presented. So keep learning and keep following us at reallyafrica.org. Thank you, Robin.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gardens. It is so exciting just to see this kind of evidence of Africa stepping up front and forward. And I know from having spoken with Joyce Malombe, with Ginny, with a few of the others of your Really team, that the interest and excitement that was generated by the presentations from Africa and from other global South areas was enormous. There is appetite for the perspective that this continent has. There is need for it. So thank you for representing our continent so beautifully in that arena.
Thank you.
What we are going to do now is create a little bit of space to hear from a few voices of people that are in the room, and B, just take a little bit of time, which Ginny will do for us, to reflect on our past two Learnshops, so Learnshops 1 and 2, what our experiences were. We'd love to hear the voice of any of you who were in one or both of those workshops. So Jill, I see that you're in the room with us. A couple of those who were there with us, if you could just put your hands up and offer us a 30-second reflection, just to help us remember It's a couple of months after the last one, but just to help us land back into this thinking space together. So a quick refresher. Learnshop 1. In Learnshop 1, we really looked at what does parental empowerment and engagement mean? What influence does parental and caregiver involvement have on learning? And how may parents who are furthest behind best be empowered to support learning? Jenny, I'm going to hand over to you just to help us reflect and remember on the 2 Learnshops before, and to have a quick, very, very brief, because we don't want to contaminate the conversation too much, but a quick look at what has come back from the thoughts in our RSVP form for today's Learnshop. Jenny, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robin, and hello, everyone. I'm joining from the car, and soon I'll be beginning my travel back to Nairobi, so I hope that you can get me clearly. I happened to have my plans changed to be in a village today. But looking back, and first is to appreciate the members present and all of you for taking time to join us. This is an issue close to our heart, and we are curious about unpacking what really it takes to get parents as equal partners in providing education, in supporting education. And as Modern rightly pointed out, what is happening gradually is that parents are distancing themselves from the, supporting learning. And one wonders why. Is it because of how we sell our policies? Is it because we have made them feel like education belongs to some elite class? And so these Learnshops are opportunities for us to explore what are our biases, what are the opportunities, and what are the spaces we can use and leverage to be able to get our parents at a point where they are functionally and equitably engaged in the provision of education. So in our session, in our Learnshop 1, I don't know whether Robin, we can go to the next slide. As the focus said, it was largely to open up a discussion and ask ourselves, what exactly is this subject and why does it matter to our heart? And we asked a number of questions, but today I just want to amplify a few highlights and narrow us down to the last, to the extreme, the section on the extreme right, where 3 things emerged that parents, and even as we talk about engagement, empowerment, and what that may look like and how we understand it, then the 3 outstanding things were that parents are a critical player in the progress and learners' well-being. So we cannot separate, and maybe I think the way we have been pushing this as parental engagement towards learning, this point for me challenges us to expand our thinking and consider well-being as a component, because there's no learning that can happen in the absence of well-being. But also through your responses and the responses of those who responded to the survey, parents being perceived as partners. And we do appreciate, while I was growing up, I always had this example that for education to happen, there has to be 3 rocks. And for those who are used to the African kitchen, you have 3 stones that are put together, and you make a cooking place, or you form a cooking place. And the first stone there is a teacher, the other stone there is a parent, and the third rock or stone is a child. And for whatever processes that need to happen, then we need to acknowledge these partners, parents as partners. But the thing is, we have acknowledged them as partners, but how well have we equipped them to play their partnership role in doing this? What are we doing wrong, and what can we better, to have the spaces, the parents claim this space as equal partners. And the third is that the parents as motivators for learners. And the learning process will not happen in a vacuum. It needs an environment that is conducive, an environment that's friendly. So as we ponder around what parental engagement looks for all of us, what for me Learnshop 1 challenges me to do is expand the thinking, to acknowledge the parents as partners, but also explore opportunities to amplify and have parents claim that role and be able to execute it as they are, as they should. That way we may be able to get to the point where they are actively engaged. Moving on to the other bit, we could go to the next slide. Then when based on what we had, and we are trying to make sense of all these conversations, and ask, and at the end of it all, maybe look back and check what is emerging in terms of what are the areas of concern in amplifying the role of parents, in equipping the parents to be able to claim their space. And we heard that we need to consider capacity building, and I'm glad, because this is one of the areas we're exploring in our but capacities for what? So as these conversations advance, we are keen to also understand better when we talk about capacity building, on what exactly, because homework may not be the only option. We may want to better understand what are these capacities that parents require that are primarily at the core of them supporting learning. But then we also heard about spaces, and we look at the conducting community conversations, engaging in barazas and all that, creating that space, and equipping the parent then to claim that space, supporting them with all the resources, supporting them with all the maybe even giving them an opportunity to voice their concerns, to get us to a point where parents are then in a position to proceed. I know we asked the question about initiatives, quite a range coming up, but again, they keep pushing us back to the spaces that exist, the opportunities to voice out their concerns, and also the capacities that are required if parents are indeed to play their role. Transitioning to the next slide, and this is where we spent a lot of time in our Learnshop too, asking ourselves, we have had so many things being repeated: communication, collaboration, agency. And I think agency should be our overarching umbrella. We need parents who can step up, parents who can demand, parents who can guide, parents who can claim, and that level of agency, and parents who can action things. So that level of agency has to be supported through certain pillars. And so the second Learnshop helped us to explore the communication pillar, the collaboration pillar. And if we look at what we found in the next slide, so there seems to be barriers that make it impossible for parents to effectively engage with us, or to effectively engage with the education system. I know ignorance ranked very high, but yeah, that could be one of the many challenges. But also noting that the space is not as friendly as it should. We are saying that we are creating spaces like the previous Learnshop showed, that we are getting community meetings as spaces for parents, but then the issues of language barriers persist. And then if you look at the trust, issues of trust, issues of challenge, parents not being in a position to understand what the education system is all about. All this contributes to them being not able to effectively engage with the processes of education. And I think these are things that really are close to us, and we would want to understand better as we progress with these conversations. How do we get to a level where it is possible to overcome these barriers and create an approach that is inclusive for all parents, irrespective of their literacy levels, irrespective of their geographical orientation, and then we should be able to get them on board. In the next slide, which also is exploring similar opportunities and ways in which we can strengthen this, we got to hear that in as much as that is happening, we still amplify the place of parents. We still amplify, the place of meetings. We're still creating and saying that we need more PTA meetings, parent engagement forums. But I think pushing this further, the question for us is, how does it then, how do these spaces translate to action? Because I think we are at a point where our anxieties, our concerns are that we have many fora, we have many ways of demanding and expressing the demands on the parents, but we have seen very little reciprocated effort with them claiming the space and being active players in the provision of education. So we, in exploring how to make that different, I think we are still leaning towards the knowledge sharing part. Or can we create more awareness? Can we create more engagement? Can we create more forums? Can we have more PTA meetings? Can we have better communication? So there's still that high level, and allow me to say this, cognitive focus. So we kind of still are at the point where we feel parents need a lot more information, but maybe we need to shift and start asking ourselves, how do we get more traction and action from these parents based on the information they already have? How can we get them to get started on some form of actions to support learning? On to the next slide, Robin, please. So I think then we in preparing for this, we had all these questions, we had all these reflections guiding us, and our third Learnshop is focusing on capacities. So we have heard from session 1 the need to consider capacity strengthening, but what are these capacities? We've heard the need, the need to explore the resources that exist, and Modern just articulated that. But what are these resources? Who has them? How do we get them to be applied to support education? And then on the third part, we have the parental and community voice. And this connects really well to the aspect of communication, but broadly more than that. Voice has to be it's both what teachers or school leaders tell parents, what parents tell their school leaders or their school counterparts, but also what happens at the family level. What voices do children hear from these parents, and what do those voices mean in terms of promoting a love and passion for education? So in the next slide, we will just be sharing what is emerging. I'll just focus again to usher us to the discussion of the day. On the slide on the extreme right, or the section on the extreme right, that when we asked you, our audience, what we felt were the capacities, the skills that are necessary for parents to support learning, communication emerged. And so we will be so happy to hear today, what is it with communication? What do we communicate about? Who communicates it? How does this happen? Again, moving on to some of us extending the SEL, social emotional learning, empathy skills. How do we get parents to that level? And then aspects on capacities around digital literacy and numeracy. So there seems to be a lot that needs to be explored, and I would admit that then it's time to bring this to reality through today's conversation and explore how could we bring this to life. How can our own program start focusing and paying attention to some of the challenges that are emerging? And in what I suppose is the last slide, we just keen to also reflect in a way. What did we hear? What are the challenges and what are the channels? So amidst all that is happening, where it's quite an interesting thing to say. In one of the graphs there, I think the graph that was the beginning for the summary for Learnshop 2, we saw most of us, over 80%, I think 70 or 80%, saying that we feel our parents have voice. Yeah, this is the slide. They have the voice. But when it comes to the challenges on the third slide after this, we're still seeing and hearing that voice, there's a lack of formal communication, for example. There's a fear of parents on how they express themselves. So then are we justified to still claim they have voice? And what does this voice then look like, and how can we build it? And I want to stop there, Robin, because we may want to hear a lot more from the team with regards to what do all these tensions, because there are tensions emerging. In some instances, we feel the space is there, the voice is there, the capacities are there. But when it comes to, but what is ailing us from getting there? Oh, no, we again realize we still have something that we need to figure out. So what is that? And that's why we're having these discussions. Back to you, Robin, and thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Wonderful. So what we'd like to do now, because it's been a lot of there's been a lot of us talking, but we'd really like to have some of the voices from the room just come back into our space together and reflect on your own experiences. So we'd like to just pause for a moment and invite any of you who were in either of those past two Learnshops just to reflect on your experience and your thinking.
Parents should not leave everything to the teachers if the performance has to be there. If the performance has to be there, the parents really need to do a lot it is the parents who are giving the non-formal education, which is very important. They help their children to know how to cook, how to wash, how to do the domestic work. That is the parents. Parents are the ones who will also do some of the elementary teachings of their children, how to dance, how to relate, how to be good children at home. Another responsibility I've learned is that parents, we are the ones who are supposed to discipline our children. We don't allow this only for the teachers. Teachers may be tight hands, but as parents, we have to give the discipline to our children that they can remain disciplined as they go to school. It is our responsibility as parents also to guide and counsel our children. I've seen my wife, the mother of these daughters, doing a lot of guidance, a lot of counseling to them, not only in schools. So when the teacher is doing guidance and counseling, the parent is doing guidance and counseling, our children will remain good children. Parents, honestly, they must be making strong partnership with the teacher. The communication must be there, especially in Kenya. In Kenya, we are doing curriculum-based education. We call it CBC, curriculum-based education, where there must be so much engagement of the children by both the teacher and the parent. So I was saying there must be a strong partnership between the parents and the teachers. This is possible through frequent communication, visiting the schools, parents giving us, teachers giving us some forums, we can have meetings, and also being actively informed in the WhatsApp groups. Like in my 2 schools, I'm already in the WhatsApp group in grade 6 for my daughter, in form 3 for my daughter, and I talk with the class teacher every night. Then I talk with the administration once in a while, but with the class teacher, we talk almost on a daily basis. I've realized my responsibility is not only paying school fees. I should engage with the teacher. Through this, I've realized that my daughter's performance are also good. And even every other parent wants the performance to be there. The truth is that they must engage with their children. And when the children knows that the parent is in touch with the teacher, the discipline will be there, the performance will be there, the results will be good. So I don't know if I'm wrong, but I can say that parents have equal responsibilities with the teacher when it comes to educating their children. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you so much, Ndeti. That's very precise, emphasizing the need for parents to be very actively involved in their child's learning. And for him, he's been able to actually see positive change in terms of performance for his daughter because he's been very engaged. So thank you so much, Ndeti. And if anyone has a question or a comment for Ndeti, please feel free to put it in the chat. So I'd like to welcome our second parent, Somoine. Are you ready, Somoine?
So Maggie, if Somoine is battling with sound, because it has been a slight issue for her previously, it would be wonderful, Somoine, if you can please share your perspective and your thoughts, because I know you had some really, really fantastic, valuable thoughts in our preparatory sessions. If you could please share them in the chat with us. And maybe while we just wait to see if the sound comes, we can chat to Elifaraja.
Elifaraja, okay. So Elifaraja, please. Elifaraja is from Tanzania. So please do share with us your perspective from your context on how parental engagement has worked for you.
Do you want from me? I cannot contribute because nowadays there is no need to contribute. There is free education. So why teachers need something? That is something I can share from the community where I'm living. But me as a parent, I just take my part as a parent, but I think I have already explained it before. Maybe if you ask or whatever, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, El Faraja. That was wonderful for both of you, El Faraja and Deiti. I think I wanted to highlight two key things, and I think Somoina will not be able to share, but some key things that have come up from what Deiti and El Faraja have shared. The first thing was that parents have a responsibility and they have agency. The aspect of communication, again, coming out very important, being able to communicate with teachers, having those open channels for parents to be able to ask questions and actually talk to teachers and ask about how their children's learning is happening and be able to support that. Then engagement of parents being linked to resulting to improved learning outcomes, as Leti shared, that he feels his involvement in his daughter's learning has actually led to improvement of performance by his daughter. But then also you've seen El Faraja highlighting some challenges that still remain, literacy, language barrier and whatnot. So I see a highlight in the chat on some of the things that were coming up. So let's continue to engage with some of the things that you see coming up as they relate and as they link to the theme. So I see Robin reminding me now I need to welcome our chief guest speaker today. So I have the privilege of welcoming. Can you hear me, Robin? Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I have the privilege of welcoming our keynote speaker today, Dr. Utheru Kanayo. So Dr. Utheru Kanayo, originally Susan Kiragu, was born and raised in Nairobi and Nakuru, Kenya. She studied education at undergraduate and master's level at Kenyatta and Nairobi universities. She then won a full scholarship in 2005 to pursue a PhD in education at Newnham College, University of Cambridge in the UK. After her studies, she stayed in the UK from 2009 to 2013, and she worked as an academic researcher at the Faculty of Education, University of Cambridge, and later as a research manager for CAMFED International. So she's very well exposed to Africa's education landscape, having carried out research in Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa, and Swaziland. So in 2013, Utheri and her husband, Kanayo, quit their well-paying jobs in the UK to return to Kenya and established an NGO called Children in Freedom. They offered scholarships and mentorship to African children, encouraging them to love their African heritage and use their talents to innovate solutions for their communities. Their powerful mentorship program received recognition from President Uhuru and Margaret Kenyatta. And in 2018, 3 years after her return to Kenya, Utheri co-founded the first Afrocentric school in East Africa called Children in Freedom Schools. Children in Freedom Schools has a thriving kindergarten and primary section. And in 2013, the school grew another level. So now they have the Freedom High School. All levels of the school nurture giftedness and talent in children and dually ground them to embrace their Africanness and become global leaders. So I'm very privileged and honored. We are very privileged and honored to have you as our keynote speaker today, Dr. Utheru. Please welcome and share your reflections and insights. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Margaret, for that introduction. And thank you very much, Africa Voices Dialogue and Rally, for having me to talk about this topic, which is my lived life every day because I run a school and I deal with parents every day. So just from my own experiences and from what I've heard from you, I think I'm kind of just giving back, sharing back in both ways, what I've had today and what I've been learning every day. So my husband and I, and we have a very great team of teachers and non-teaching staff. We're a team of 36, run Children in Freedom School, and now we have Freedom High School, and it's the first Afrocentric school, I think, within the radius of East Africa. And our main vision is to bring back our children, our people, to embrace the African heritage. The African, maybe people from outside would assume that we are Afrocentric, but the African is living in a very colonial state of mind, in a very colonial influence up to date. I mean, I have a lot of colonial influence in my life just because of how I was brought up, vis-a-vis maybe a child who grew up in Japan. Okay, which we are partnering. We have a kindergarten partnership with Japan, and the Japanese kids come and show us just authentic Japanese culture, and the Kenyan children show a Eurocentric. They're working so hard to make them now share the African heritage, and it's so important then, even in my life and in my everyday life, to bring parents on board, because what we're doing in school must also be implemented in their home. So when I thought of this topic, maybe it was just like I was thinking through my life every day. Parent engagement, parent empowerment, what have we done? What needs to be done? And with the mind of the parent from maybe the low income, okay, or disadvantaged context, what is there? So first of all, I thought about engagement. You know, we can be all here singing engagement, empowerment. What do they really mean? And simply engagement is to do it, to do something, okay, to be part, okay? So you dive in, or you're part, you're there, okay? That's engaging. Then empowerment is the authority, the power, the belief in yourself, the self-efficacy to do something, okay? You feel I can. I matter, my voice matters, my mind, who I am, what I have to offer is relevant, is good enough, okay? I can share it in a pool of other ideas, and maybe we can design something together. So those two things, the doing, but the doing cannot happen without the belief that I can. And one of the reasons we went into Afrocentric thought and Afrocentric culture. Afrocentric just means Africa-centered. Being purposively Africa-centered was because some of the children that we were supporting in scholarship and mentorship way back, maybe even 10 years ago, had very little self-efficacy. And I understand the same can flow through any African because of the context that we live in, where you feel not as good as maybe other people from other parts of the world. You grow up in a context of receiving knowledge, being told what to do, being guided, other countries and communities being at the forefront. So I can easily see how the African parent can disengage or can want to be led. But what we want here is a parent who is empowered and engaged. Then I came back and thought to myself, as a human being, regardless of class, gender, you know, race, I think everyone wants good for themselves. You want good for yourself, you want good for your child, you want to be happy, you want to be loved, you want to be appreciated, just regardless of where you come from. Okay, maybe I can say, maybe academically I'll be asked not to say everyone, but I think it's general that we really want good for ourselves. And to want good for yourself, it's an indicator that in you have that drive to make good for yourself. You have that drive to want, if I want something good for my child, if I want a good meal for my child, I'll go out there and pick the best that I can, the best ingredients that I can, and make it the best way that I can. You know, I have in me that drive. So in a way, it can be argued that innately we have that empowerment, that love and that strength to go for what is good, to want what is good. But then there's a disconnect, because where do we lose it? When we feel not empowered, when do we disengage? And so I think that's what I want to just quickly share a few pointers. And I think some of them have already been discussed. Some of them nothing new. I'm just kind of sharing what other parents have also shared and what they're going through. I think the first thing is vision, the vision of the institution. Do we want the same thing? Is the vision of the school or the vision of the learning institution, the education institution, shared very clearly? And does it have the buy-in of the parents? Because it's ridiculous how in Africa, and I've been to several parts of Africa where I was laughing when somebody said, it's like they have noticed we have the same. I think it was in Ndeti. We are quite similar. And it's ridiculous how we just take a child to school. Okay, me even being one of them, I don't remember my parents maybe engaging half as much as I make parents engage today. They just believe that's a good school, my daughter will do well there, goodbye. Okay, attend PTA. I've had a lot of you saying that you attend PTA, but I still critique PTA because PTA is a platform set up by the school, but I don't know how many parental voices are heard in that meeting. It has become quite robotic, quite mechanical, these PTAs. Is the parent really speaking their mind? Are there models, a unit, a unit where there's this cluster of parents, like how we went into breakout rooms, where you feel everyone was given a chance to the minute point possible to speak their mind. Okay, so I feel even me, the parenting I received was not quite engaged in my learning, could have attended PTA. And if you don't attend nowadays, actually in many schools in Kenya, especially the high schools, the child is sent home. So you actually are forced to attend because you don't want your child to be sent home. You don't want to be penalized for that. So have the parents bought and owned the vision of the school? So that even me in my school, if there is not there, I can call Mama Kamau. Mama Kamau can articulate very clearly what is the vision and the mission of the school. Like for us, we are Afrocentric and we are global. What does Afrocentric mean? And then what does being global mean? We want this strong African child who knows who they are and who can identify what they're good at. And after being this strong African, loving themselves, crazy about the of Africa, they can partner with anyone else in the world in an equal playing field because you're good. Okay. So number one, let's think about that. Okay. There are different ways also to articulate your vision, because these PTAs, I'm quite critical of them because most of the times are annual. I'm happy to hear from the lady from Uganda about the visiting days, but sometimes when you visit, you're spending more time with your child. Is it an opportunity? How many times are the parents engaging with the vision? How many times? And nowadays with technology, I mean, people are on WhatsApp groups. Most schools have even their Facebook groups, their LinkedIn pages, they're on Instagram, or whatever else that works for your community. And Kenya is very what can I say? Most Kenyans have phones. Let me put it like that. Okay, it's the norm now, I think, and there are lots of articles written about that. There are so many ways that we can keep communicating media, videos, take videos of something in the school, that keep reminding the parent about the vision and the cause of the school. And those parents who own your vision will engage. They'll send you back data. They'll read something on how maybe there's someone from Africa who's done this thing. They send to me. You can see this is a parent who's really owned it. When I tell them we're gonna learn mother tongue, we're gonna do it. You can see them really sending over material, that kind of a thing. The second thing I want to touch on is just the engagement. Does it come with a feeling that I'm improving myself? You feel an added advantage that because I'm doing this, I'm actually adding, this is time well spent. This is just amazing. Like the parent is motivated. How can we make the engagement opportunities value driven? Like I feel I'm adding value to myself. Or is it the same old, same old? I think one of the parents in group 5 was talking about, we go for all these meetings, we have all these wonderful suggestions, nothing goes, nothing is done. So the parent becomes despondent, probably just attends, like if it's in Kenya, so that the child is not sent home. Okay, so we must design engagements where people feel it's value adding, it's for our good, okay? And sometimes it could even involve, like just coincidentally last night, we had an entrepreneurship talk. If you go to any one of our social media pages, I think it's there. And it was led by a parent. It was led by Pastor Joyce, because Pastor Joyce has found her niche and her passion in training entrepreneurs. And she's gone ahead and been trained up to, I think there's something she told us about the ILO certification and stuff like that. And she was just telling me passingly. Then I said, oh my God, do you know how many parents in the school need that kind? They would dream of doing stuff. They want to start a business, but they don't know how to go about it. So Pastor Joyce gave a talk. It took 1.5 hours from 7 to 8:30 p.m. with loads of questions. I mean, she got clients, and even and then the clients also got this information. So are the engagements value adding? Okay. Leadership is so important. The leadership of the institution is so important. The management. Who is the leader? How do they think? What are their values? Can they identify gaps that need to be filled? Okay. Do they respect everyone? Or will they respect according to different variants, according to how much money you have, or this is the chief's son, or I don't know, the different variants that make people favor others. Okay. Do they respect all? And then from then on, is this a leader who is empathetic? Is this a leader who genuinely cares? Okay. And I'm really concerned, for example, in Kenya, for the Teacher Service Commission, I just read in the media, so I need to check whether it's true, that now teachers are just going to be automatically promoted. So if you've worked, for example, maybe you have a certain certification and you work a certain number of years, that means that after that time, you'll go to the next level, Is that good enough to get to the leadership of an institution where you have children under you? Do you have the goodness in your heart to lead families, to lead children, to lead teachers, to be bothered that parents must be engaged, to be bothered that your parents must be empowered? Your parents, like yesterday we told them, one of my visions in school, I cannot be growing and my families in the school are not growing. It's too much work. When I want to do something big for the school, you'll not like it because it's too big for you. You want things as they are. You want things so am I growing with my population? So that leader cannot come just by promoting every 3 years for the sake. There must be better mechanisms. We must be willing to do the hard thing, the hard job of selecting the right leadership for our schools. That teacher, that head teacher who's going to work in the rural areas. I've done research in places where the local quality assurance officer told me, oh, I've never even gone to that school. Someone who's worked there 5 years. It's too far away. Nobody, and I say, I want to go to that school. So like when I was in Cambridge, I would take my Cambridge colleagues to remote schools that even the local education officers haven't gone. They don't have the heart for it. That's what happens when you give somebody a job based on qualification. You don't check their heart, you don't check their empathy, you don't check their drive, you don't check their citizenship. They're just there to get the salary, to get a job like that. I don't work like that. So please think about the leadership of the school. It will sort all these things of engagement and empowerment, because this leader is a leader who is even thriving to drive engagement and empowerment among schools. Any good leader will know I can't do it alone. I really need to do it with others. I go back to, I think, what Virginia was talking about, the 3 cooking stones, okay? 2 will not work, the pot will fall down. So we need that, the teacher or the school, we need the parent there, we need the child for us to hold this pot together. Another thing that I wanted to talk about that would encourage engagement and is acknowledging parents' input. I cannot even begin to touch on maybe the number of times that people are not acknowledged for their input, okay? Sometimes it's out of ignorance, and sometimes it's you who wants to look like you know it all. The head teacher or whoever, the teacher, I don't know. I would want to look like, oh, that was my idea. No, that idea came from Mama Njeri. It wasn't your idea. And depending on where the school is, Mama Njeri walked 2 hours to the school to give her input, to give her voice, her mind, and you're taking power from her from not acknowledging her greatness, her mind, okay? So always just acknowledge. You can, if you have public spaces where you can even share that so-and-so is the one who did this, that by all means, go ahead and acknowledge parents' input. This will motivate them. And also give them the chance to do things. So I gave you an example of Pastor Joyce in my school yesterday. And I think it has been said, there was a point about using that resource, the capacities within you. So if a parent has a certain skill, that's your resource person. They can come in and share that knowledge, that skill, or they know somebody who knows, you know. It can only happen if they feel it is okay to do that. People will not offer themselves and will not bring their networks on board if they feel that is not welcome in your institution. So it goes back to the leadership still, a warm heart, open, someone inviting, you know, wanting parents to also give and share their knowledges. All right. I think I've touched on the importance of self-efficacy and the drive of a parent. I thought about this like an institution can have the best leader, you know, the best head teacher, the best manager, the best vision, but you also have parents who have very low self-efficacy, have low drive based on maybe their background and or what they believe in themselves. You must deal with that. You must have ways to identify. I think in most schools that I've been to, especially if you go to the low income ones, parents have this ideology of we're here to be told, we are here to receive. Then if the leader would now start encouraging them to say, hello, whoever you are, please mute, it's affecting me. Okay, if the leader has the heart to keep encouraging these parents, because you kind of understand why they are quiet. They're not quiet because they lack wisdom or they lack knowledge. That should not be misconstrued. It's just maybe it's their first time to be asked to talk. With time, they open up as you have the skills to open them up. So the self-efficacy and drive of parents should really be taken care of. It should be looked into. Okay. Personal expression should be allowed. This is just passing. Personal expression should be allowed. Openness. You cannot want engagement and then police the engagement to a point where somebody will feel uncomfortable by how you look at them. You can just, you know, throw them an eye. Maybe there's an African eye. I remember my parents would just look at me and I understood. There's just a look that will tell you, oh, what you're saying, Mama John, is not good. Okay, so we should also open a floor for personal expression, openness. We should also, in line with that, just quickly, also understand that there are personal challenges that make parents not engage, that make parents not be empowered. I mean, we were brainstorming this with my husband. Like, if I have an issue with maybe my child is very sick or I lack basic needs, would I really be keen on engaging? And then he told me, depending on you, who you are, so it goes back to self-efficacy, you might want to be active in bringing a change to your problem. So it shouldn't just be assumed that because people have personal challenges or people are living in low-income areas, disadvantaged areas, that they still don't have that drive and energy to make a difference. And maybe finally, or just almost finally, I want to share about something that I know really works in the African context, especially with people who might not be exposed to engaging, might not feel empowered, might not feel that they are good enough because of life has just made you, poverty has taken over in your head and you just don't feel like I matter or I'm anyone or anybody. There's just the mentorship about the truth about the African. So African identity, and that's why we go back to Afrocentrism. I'd like to just quickly tell you that when we were on the ground, you heard from my bio that we lived in the UK. We actually lived in Cambridge. We were very happy there. I was happy, I had friends and everything. But the research participants that I left back home and in the African countries were always in my heart. I already knew what I needed to do with my life. I needed to drop everything, come back and help these children. And it's very scary where you are an academic at the University of Cambridge. Your life could just follow a really academic path, really secure employment. I had, you have a tenure. I dropped all that to just follow my dream, okay? So you need to be just crazy risk taker. But coming to the ground was such an eye-opener, because these children were even asking, why have you come back? Why didn't you stay there? Maybe if you stayed there, I can join you there. Those kind of things. And we're like, this person doesn't even know how great they are as a Black African, as how great their continent is. And that's how we started now telling them things that will make them appreciate themselves. I didn't grow up being given this kind of mentorship. I hardly I grew up in a very Eurocentric, what can I say? A very Eurocentric setting, okay? So I know that mentorship, the Afrocentric mentorship really matters, where you tell the person the power of their heritage, the power of who they are, and the like. And there's a whole curriculum for that. So just to wrap up is to say, thank you very much. Parents are willing and open to being empowered and to being engaged. I just picked on a few incidences or a few experiences from my my own practice. And because of time, I'll stop there, and thank you for having me.
Wow.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Uthiri. That was phenomenal, incredibly inspiring. I hope that we're all going to leave today and go and tell our children and the parents in our communities and the people that we are closest to just what phenomenal human beings they are, and how much their African heritage offers them, how much this continent offers them, how much we have to be proud of, and just loved the way, I just loved your bringing back to us again one of our very, very first Africa Voices dialogue themes, the importance of collaborative and collective participatory leadership in education. So it's just so beautiful to see over time how these themes weave into each other, how important it is for us to acknowledge the whole, the value of everything that our continent has to offer, and to really stand up and step into that. So